Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, The Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
Yeah, man!
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
Junior Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Moving Mountain Mondays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And I am particularly glad that you're joining us on the 405, the 101, the 5, the 10, the 118, the 110. A really sad day here in the city of Chicago with the loss of a real pillar in our generation, Spencer Leak Jr., prodigy of the Leak and Sons family funeral home business, a funeral home business that has been in business for more than a century, beginning with A.R. Leak Sr., then A.R. Leak Jr., then Mr. Spencer Leak, and now Spencer Leak Jr., our dearly departed brother. Yesterday, I heard the news while I was in Indiana and drove to the hospital immediately, about an hour away, only to find out that my close and dear friend and his family had already gathered. And there we prayed over Spencer, along with the Reverend Charles Jenkins and Yusuf Jackson, and other members of the family. And so our city is in great shock here in the city of Chicago. And when I think and reflect upon not only this family's enormous legacy, which includes handling the mortal remains of Sam Cooke, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, and literally of hundreds of notables, when one considers the thousands of people that this family has come into contact with over the course of more than a century of leadership right here in the city of Chicago, one can only reflect upon all African-American funeral directors in major municipalities around our country, in rural areas, because this is a business that has largely emerged successful as a result of first Reconstruction and Jim Crow. In large measure, dating back to 1619, when no white embalmer or funeral director would ever come into contact with a black body. How bodies were prepared during slavery and families and their own responsibilities for burying their dearly departed loved ones during first Reconstruction after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Businesses began to emerge in our communities as a result of racial segregation, where African American families in various locales and locations would guarantee the dignity of the African American and the African body and its proper burial. The community, even within and on the plantation, would be allowed the opportunity to celebrate the life of the dearly departed. And then, of course, during Jim Crow from 1896 to 1954, the funeral business in the African American community continued to expand, not just because of violent acts upon the Black community, but because our funeral directors treated our dearly departed loved ones with the kind of dignity that they deserved. And even in spite of that dignity, more often than not, cemeteries themselves were segregated. My father first came to the city of Chicago, desegregating Oakwood Cemetery on 67th and Cottage Grove here in the city of Chicago, where Jesse Owens is buried and the late Harold Washington is buried, and where my father is presently interred, where the staple singers are buried, Albertina Walker and so many other historic notables. Ida B. Wells is buried in this once segregated cemetery in an urban area that was once outside of the city of Chicago. But my father always says that funerals are not for the living, for the dearly departed as much as they are for the living. And when one reflects upon our history, when we gathered at funerals, it was one of those sanctioned times where our community could communicate. And that was under the auspices of the funeral director, of the minister who might have been the funeral director, or the caretaker or caregiver of our mortal remains. And so when it comes to sponsoring Black independent politics in large municipalities, almost every African American candidate can almost count on the support of the Black funeral director as a source of not only funding for the campaign, but as a pillar that knows just about every family in the community. Every family is better known by the funeral director than, let's say, a popular pastor in a city. Not all pastors do funerals. Not all pastors allow funerals to be done in their churches in the modern era. But every one of our families at some point in time must come to terms with the inevitable. We become friendly and we get to know and work with the funeral director. It's a quiet strength in the African American community across the country. And I am just so struck at this hour by the loss of my dearly departed friend, a major pillar in our community. And there are such pillars like this in every community in the country, and they're in the funeral business. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We'll be talking about Tulsa when we come forward, and how racial segregation is also largely responsible for some of the businesses that have been most productive in service to our community. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580 in just a moment.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
In a world full of noise, one station keeps it real. KBLA Talk 1580, where the conversation goes deeper, the voices sound like yours, and the issues that matter most to our community take center stage. Progressive, powerful, unapologetically us. Whether you're driving through this city or tuning in from your home or office, join the public square. KBLA Talk 1580. Your home for talk that enlightens, encourages, and empowers. Listen live on our free KBLA 1580 app, on our website at KBLA1580.com, or on your radio dial at 1580 AM.
Unapologetically progressive.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm. A-rated by the Better Business Bureau, their award-winning tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $3 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Find the best options to solve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief today for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from IQ Bar. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at eatiqbar.com/policy/terms of service.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ Bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 9 plant protein bars, 8 hydration mixes, and 4 mushroom coffee sticks. And now you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping when you text RADIO to 64,000. Text RADIO to 64,000 to get your 20% off. That's RADIO to 64,000.
Let's celebrate.
Y'all did it.
Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles, KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God.
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, the Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
Yeah, man.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're dedicating this hour and this show to the late Spencer Leak Jr. In this hour, Ernest Krim III is an Emmy-nominated producer, public teacher, anti-racist educator, and hate crime victor who uses Black historical narratives to empower and educate through a culturally equitable lens. Mr. Krim, a South Side of Chicago native and University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign graduate, is a former high school history educator of 12 years who now advocates for social justice regarding issues that matter to our community and teaches Black history to the world through social media with a platform that reaches roughly 4 million people each month. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks again for having me, brother. It's good to be back here with you.
Ernest, I'm so glad that you're here. I want to talk about Tulsa in just a moment, but initially, before we begin our discussion, your initial thoughts on the loss of Spencer Leak Jr.
Yeah, a grave loss to our community. I think that what comes to mind when you speak about the Lee family and that tradition is we have to remember that we need all hands on deck at all moments. Oftentimes when we speak to kids in our community about what they should strive to do, we often limit it to a few careers. In America, we'll say to be a doctor, a lawyer, or something like that, right? Or something that we can immediately associate with making a vast amount of money. But we don't think about the fact that we need to also have people who can take care of our families when we are grieving a loved one, to make sure that we are buried with dignity and have what we need in times like that. This family comes from a great tradition of people who did this, as you said previously, during a time when we had to be buried in segregated cemeteries, some of which, of course, have existed in the Chicago area, some of which I've taken some tours in the South suburban region. Some of them still do exist. So that family has made such a tremendous contribution to our community. And I hope that through his example and through their example, we can better learn what we must be doing in this moment. Rest in peace, Mr. Leaks.
He will clearly be sorely missed, and we'll bring more as more details become available about Spencer Leak Jr. and the Leak family. I want to turn our attention now to the Tulsa race riot of 1921. Tulsa Greenwood District is the site of one of the most devastating race disturbances in the history of the United States. Before May 31st, 1921, Tulsa's Black business district, known as the Greenwood, flourished in spite of segregation. It boasted several restaurants, theaters, clothing shops, and hotels. Dubbed the Black Wall Street, Greenwood was an economic powerhouse. After May 31st, 1921, Greenwood would never be the same. The tension mounted between the Black and white communities over an incident that allegedly occurred in an elevator at the Drexel Building in downtown Tulsa involving Sarah Page, a 19-year-old white elevator operator, and Dick Rowland, a 19-year-old Black man. There are several versions of what supposedly transpired, but the most common being that Dick Rowland accidentally stepped on Page's foot in the elevator, throwing her off balance. When Rowland reached out to keep her from falling, she screamed. Many Tulsans came to believe through media reports that Rowland attacked Page, although no sufficient evidence surfaced to substantiate the claim. The incident was further escalated by a local newspaper headline that encouraged the public to, quote, nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator, unquote. The strained relationship between Black and white communities, the heightened jealousy of the success of Black Wall Street area, and the elevator encounter led to the Tulsa race riot. Armed white men looted, burned, destroyed the Black community. When the smoke cleared, mere shells of buildings were all that remained of the business district. The Red Cross estimates that more than 300 people were killed and approximately 1,200 homes were destroyed. 300 people were killed. And because they were largely African American, it means that the funeral business in Tulsa became a booming business overnight. We're going to go to a clip.
Between the 1870s and the beginning of World War I, Black pioneers settled more than 100 all-Black towns in the West, each with the goal of economic independence. Among the most well-known was a Black district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known by its residents as Greenwood.
If we were to go back in time to 1920 and walk up and down Greenwood Avenue, one thing that would probably strike us is the absolute variety of businesses. The numbers are astonishing. 30 restaurants, 45 groceries and meat markets. There were dry goods stores, milliners, photography studio, dental offices. Greenwood is no longer called Greenwood. It's now known as Black Wall Street.
This whole idea of self-containment really existed there. The dollar would stay in that community sometimes over 3-5 years before it ever went outside of the community.
In 1919, Black soldiers returned from World War I with high expectations for racial progress at home. But in one city after another, white mobs erupted in violence, targeting Black veterans, citizens, and businesses. Hundreds died. On Tulsa's Black Wall Street, African Americans, including armed veterans, watched nervously and prepared for what might come.
Countering this white militancy is very much an African American spirit of we're going to defend ourselves. If the mob comes, we're not going to run, we've got our guns, and we're going to protect ourselves. And that was especially important and valuable and potent in Greenwood.
On May 30th, 1921, the mob came to Greenwood.
This white woman is in an elevator, and this black teenager allegedly whistles at her or talks to her. He is taken to jail. A mob gathers of whites and blacks, and blacks in Tulsa are armed. They take their Second Amendment rights seriously, and they come with guns. And this is a threat. Someone fires into the crowd, and the riot is born. This was not about the whistling boy in the elevator. This was about blacks becoming too economically powerful and showing that wealth in a way that anyone would by creating buildings and constructing churches and having property.
There was a whistle that blew, and then the mass invasion and the destruction of Greenwood began.
When the smoke cleared in the early morning of June 1st, 1921, Black Wall Street lay in ruins.
This is by far the largest single incident of racial violence in all of American history.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Ernest, Black Wall Street, a day of infamy in the history of the nation, but also in the history of our community. When you think about it, this is June 1st, June 2nd, 2026. We're looking and living right now in this moment at the anniversary of the Tulsa race riots. Ernest, your thoughts?
Oh, man, so many things come to mind. I think the best way to enter this conversation is to ask the listening audience, everybody out there, to ponder for a moment about when you first found out about the destruction of Black Wall Street and the terrorism that led to its decimation. I wonder how many of you all can say that you learned it in school. And I say this because myself, as a teacher who taught from a Black perspective in the history classes in high schools across the Chicago area for 12 years, I did not learn about it in school, even in college. I learned about it my third year teaching, scrolling online. I came across this meme that many of you all might be familiar with, and it had a group of Black men who owned businesses in Tulsa. And at the bottom, it talked about the various numbers, the quantity of businesses that were owned, from the churches, the restaurants, the grocery stores, the planes, the post office. I was just amazed. And I had to do some fact checking to ensure, because I couldn't believe that something this amazing was something that I was not aware of. It turned out to be true. And I recall going back to the class the next day and finding a way to incorporate that in a lesson. And my kids couldn't believe it. My students couldn't believe it. Colleagues of mine couldn't believe it. And what's even more interesting about this, brother, is even people in Tulsa who grew up in the area and walked down the street in places where this act of terror happened grew up not being aware. And in fact, it took almost, I think it was 80, 90 years before it was okay to even talk about this in the school system. And that lets you know the power of this information. I want to land my plane on this aspect of misinformation with this, because this system of inequity is propped up on a lie of anti-Blackness. It always has been. And when they reported that lie about what Dick Rowland did, then that in many ways justified this fallacy that they have about us. And that caused them to make that decision to destroy our community. And that same lie that rests there is the same lie that is the reason why so many of us did not learn about this until we were adults.
I think that's fascinating. I was talking with the producer of our show, Gina Towns, whose family came to prominence in Gary, Indiana, in the funeral business. And so if you think about it, the funeral director handles all of our natural causes, cancer and heart attack and natural forms of death. But also, they handled Emmett Till's remains. They handled the incidences of lynching and burning, and not only the victims of black on black violence, but they've also handled the victims of racial violence. And yet all of this may not be processed by us as individuals, of course, unless it's personal to our families. Any form of violence or any form of death might be personal to our families. But the reality is the funeral director, in honor of Spencer Leak Jr., and when I reflect upon the conversation that I had with our producer, Miss Towns, the funeral business has to process the African-American body no matter what the body has been through. I want to come back to this other point. I've often shared with friends who are in the dental business who happen to be African-American that I can tell what kind of life you've lived by the dental care that you've received. If you were buried 100 years ago and any exhumation led to an inspection of the bones and the matter that remains, it will tell us exactly which class of community you lived in while you were alive. You will be able to look at the dearly departed with fantastic dental work. It will say a lot about how they lived, where they lived, and the type of people they were. On the other hand, if you see poor dental work, it says a lot about what the society was thinking about them at the same time. And if you look at Black bodies, all that we have been subject to since the inception of our arrival here in the United States, every single body will reflect a different trauma associated with what we have been through. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on the Tulsa race riots. It is the anniversary of that tragic event in our history right here at KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Health officials say the Ebola death toll is rising in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda.
And so by the time they get to the health centers, their disease is really advanced and they end up dying.
The World Health Organization is confirming 43 deaths across both countries. Louisiana's new congressional map is now law. The GOP-led Senate gave final approval Friday, and Governor Jeff Landry signed it hours later. The move comes after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the state's 6th district. The new map eliminates one of the state's black majority congressional districts. And singer MIA is suing Kid Cudi after being removed from his tour. Cudi dropped her as an opener following a rant during a May 2nd show, saying fans were upset and he did not want anything offensive at his concerts. MIA is seeking $2.8 million, claiming Live Nation agreed to pay her regardless of what she said on stage. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Head to Waba Grill weekdays after 3 p.m. for their $5 happy hour and try their new Chili Crisp dumplings. Bold, crunchy, and tossed in a fiery crisp paired with a premium Waba beverage drink like their authentic Thai tea. Get both for just $5 only at Waba Grill. It's for you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The tennis world is buzzing today after an announcement by Serena Williams that she's coming out of retirement. The Compton native confirmed that she has accepted a wildcard invitation to play in the doubles competition next week at the HSBC Championships in London. Serena, now 44, hasn't played since she retired in 2022 after competing in the U.S. Open. Serena's announcement is not a complete surprise. There have been reports of her training 3 times a week in Florida since March. She walked away from the sport to spend more time with her family. Serena and her husband, Alexis Ohanian, have 2 young daughters. Serena gave no indication on who her doubles partner will be in London. She and her sister Venus won 14 major titles together when they were dominating the sport. We'll let you know if the legendary sisters team up again. Stay tuned. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Our voices aren't the minority opinion. They're the American conscience. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
This is America.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Let's be real. For too long, too many of our students have sat in overcrowded classrooms in underfunded public schools.
But as head of the San Diego School Board, Richard Barrera changed that.
Under Barrera's leadership, student literacy rose from the state average all the way to #1 among major urban school districts. Barrera led the way for smaller classrooms and for teachers to be paid what they're worth.
Barrera funded more counselors and mental health services, and community schools that teach real-world skills for future jobs.
A community organizer who became an education leader to fight for our kids. The only candidate for state superintendent of public instruction,
Backed by the 310,000 classroom educators of the California Teachers Association. Vote Democrat Richard Barrera for state superintendent.
Ad paid for by California Teachers Association Independent Expenditure Committee, not authorized by a candidate or committee controlled by a candidate.
Medicare Fraud Prevention Week focuses on the actions everyone can take to prevent Medicare fraud, errors, and abuse. Learn how to protect yourself and your loved ones by joining the Senior Medicare Patrol, or SMP, for Medicare Fraud Prevention Week, held the week of June 5th. Learn more at californiasmp.org or by calling 1-855-613-7080.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-444-2013. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-444-2013. That's 800-444-2013 for $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-444-2013. 800-444-2013.
Man, I love this place. I've been surfing here since I was a kid. Now, seeing my grandson out on the water, it means everything to me. Watching him and taking in the blue waves, the sea breeze, the blurry horizon.
If you have geographic atrophy, or GA, subtle changes in vision could mean it's progressing toward irreversible vision loss. Izervay is proven to slow GA progression and could help preserve your vision for longer, so you may keep seeing the world around you. Izervay, or avacincaptad pegol, is an eye injection. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may cause blood in the white of the eye, blurred vision, or a temporary increase in eye pressure. Do not drive or use machinery until vision has recovered after an eye injection or exam. Ask your retina specialist how you can slow your GA with Izervay. To learn more, call 1-855-IZERVAY or go to izervay.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is Moving Mountain Mondays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And in this hour, none other than our regular contributor, Ernest Krim, is our regular contributing guest. And we are discussing the Tulsa race riots and the supposed alleged event that took place on the elevator. But the commentator, Ernest, during the clip that we shared on the show, said that the success of Black economic development and growth and self-sufficiency was as much, if not more, a factor in the ultimate race riot, the jealousy associated with how well we were doing, and without seeking any support from the white community of Oklahoma or beyond the municipality where African Americans were being self-sufficient, was the true cause. Ernest?
I think this is the reason why this story captivates us so much. I think contextually, let's understand that by the time this massacre happens in 1921, the Greenwood District had been, thriving for, let's say, about a decade or so. O.W. Gurley moves there from Arkansas in the late 1800s. He buys some land in this area, and the first business that he had, I believe, was almost similar to a hotel or a motel, a housing settlement for people who were traveling there for the oil boom, and which is very genius, a genius way to start a business and an economy. And he was very clear, because of segregation, that he wanted to build this out for the Black community. And I think we have to contextualize that, because we're talking, this brother was born to Black folks who were enslaved, right? Like a generation removed. We're talking Black self-determination, 40 some odd years after the emancipation, from 1865 till about 1905, 1906, when he buys his land. And he begins building something that attracts so many Black folks. It turns into a booming economy, which attracts a lot of jealousy. But that was over the course of about 15 years because of that self-determination. And of course, that knowledge of what we came from, that collective work and responsibility. This existed in an area where there were 50 some odd all Black towns at the exact same time. And I think that's important for us to understand, because as we look at what Tulsa and what they were able to do through the leadership of O.W. Gurley and that foundation, let's not look at that as an anomaly. Let's look at that as the norm of what we are able to do when we are unbothered.
I do want to challenge, just to advocate for the devil in this moment, that in the modern era, where there are ties between the federal government and the state government over diversity, equity, and inclusion are becoming ties that are now unbound and not ties that bind. I'm concerned that the philosophy, and I don't mean this in a negative way, the philosophy of self-sufficiency was largely terrorized by the idea of outside influences when we do turn to ourselves and not on ourselves. I can look in every Black community in the United States, the South Side of Chicago, the Crenshaw area in Los Angeles, parts of all of Atlanta, but in Greenville, South Carolina, municipalities like Washington, D.C. When I see Donald Trump, for example, threatening to stop international aviation and flights to our cities, hence disconnecting us from the global economy, in cities where we are doing well and where we obviously could do better, but this idea of isolating us from the rest of the world, just as the Oklahomans, if you will, during that period sought to isolate Greenwood from the rest of the state and from the rest of the world, that we may be living in more complicated patterns of that same era. Do you see that, Ernest?
Oh, for sure. I think that just because of where we are now, you have to always have, one hand in, one hand out. You have to be aware of the broader political climate as you're building. I think it kind of reminds me also too of what's happening with Cuba. When you think about the impact of that politically and that embargo, not allowing resources to get to them, right? I also think about conversations I've had with people on panels, and I've had people ask questions about rebuilding something like this. And my response is to always say that if your intention is to do that, you should just do it. You shouldn't label it, right? And we are in a condition, in a situation now where post Brown versus Board post Civil Rights Act, these things are a lot more complicated than they once were. And I think that we have to be more strategic about it and also understand, just like you said, that's also something I've analyzed before and noticed. Like every time this has happened, you understand that soon after, at some point, it was decimated through violence. And it wasn't just like some random white dude, some random white folks did it. This was like a conspiracy with the local government, like.
Well, when we do well, we get redlined. Then the banks won't loan us money. When we set up our own banks, then there are another series of problems that come from setting up our banks and our credit unions. We don't meet the thresholds or the various ratios for having cash on hand, for creating and providing more loans to our local community organizations and constituents. And so it's like when we do turn to ourselves, we still find ourselves part and connected to a global system that in the case of Tulsa, we actually bought into. That is, we didn't need welfare. We didn't need government support. As a community, we could develop and grow on our own, but then came the racial terror to tear it all down. And I find it deeply troubling, and I know there's a large history behind it. The evidence that Tulsa and Greenwood more specifically did not rebound is that the fear was so great. Of course, even to this day, if we all decided to collectively rebuild Greenwood, the fear of what happened is so great in a system of risk such as ours. It's almost as if in some of our communities, in order to be self-sufficient, we're unwilling to take the risk. That's a psychological trauma that came with our engagement, if you will, with capitalism.
There was a survivor. I believe she may have passed away last year. I believe it was Sister Viola Fletcher, if I'm not mistaken, who lived a long life, who survived this when she was a child. And she often would talk about how she could never sleep laying down. She always had to sleep halfway up, right? Like sitting up. 104 years old. Yeah, she was 104 years old. And because of that fear that it could happen again. And even like, can we even quantify the fact that there are survivors who are with us who lived beyond 100 through all of that stress, all of that trauma? How could you ever trust? How could you ever believe? And I know too, there were efforts to rebuild, right? But then to your point, redlining the interstate, right? Like right through our communities. So that puts something in our minds, and it does make us feel, in a sense, helpless. And that's the challenge that we have today, because as we, again, practice this element of like Sankofa, we go back and we look at what once was, we have the benefit of hindsight. So I think it's up to us to figure out where we align that 2020 hindsight to create something better that's self-sustaining moving forward. But the reality is, the more that this happens to us, it doesn't just destroy us. And I think that's the challenge for white America. It destroys all of us.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're looking at the deep scars and some of the trauma created by this anniversary of what took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been an emergency room nurse in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I've been there through every fire season, every outbreak, every earthquake. Every time Los Angeles needed us, the doctors and nurses of Los Angeles County showed up. And right now, I'm seeing another disaster coming. Trump's cuts to Los Angeles County's healthcare system are a public health crisis in the making. Medi-Cal, public hospitals, disaster preparedness are all at risk, but we can stop it. Measure ER fights back against these cuts. For a half a penny, we keep emergency rooms open, care within reach for working families, and doctors and nurses serving the communities we love. When you vote yes on Measure ER, you're not just voting for healthcare, you're voting for LA. Vote yes on Measure ER. by June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Yes on ER, Restore Healthcare for Angelinos, sponsored by St. John's Community Health and Health Justice Action Fund. Ad committee top funder, St. John's Community Health.
Zach Sokoloff is the only Democrat running for city controller. He is a lifelong Democrat and is endorsed by the California Democratic Party and LA County Democratic Party. Zach taught at Jordan High School in Watts and created a jobs training program to build career pathways for young people. He's fought for equity and justice and will continue that fight as city controller. Vote Democrat. Vote Zach Sokoloff for LA City Controller by June 2nd. Paid for by Zach Sokoloff for Controller 2026. Additional info available at ethics.lacity.gov.
His mother was a teacher and activist. His father was a Navy veteran. He built a company worth billions, and then he walked away from it, turning from profit to purpose, helping those who need it most. That's Tom Steyer. When big oil tried to pollute our air and water, Tom fought to stop them and won. When corporations were dodging taxes, Tom closed the loophole and got billions for public schools. And when party leaders were afraid to take on Trump, he led a movement to impeach him.
This president is unfit, he's dangerous, and we need to get rid of him.
Now, Trump is attacking Tom because, like the oil companies and the tax cheats, Donald Trump knows Tom Steyer answers to no one and will do whatever it takes to stop special interests and start lowering costs for Californians.
I can't do it by myself. I need you guys to be with me, and we need to do this together.
Politicians make promises. Tom Steyer makes a difference. Make sure you vote Tom Steyer for governor, June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
Going to a World Cup match in LA this summer? Ditch the parking stress and ride Metro. With direct service from across LA County, it's the easy way to get there for just $1.75 each way.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is dedicated to inspiring youth and resilience through storytelling, arts, filmmaking, and enrichment programs for youth and families in under-resourced communities and system-impacted individuals. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free and low-cost arts programs to youth and families from under-resourced communities, both system-impacted youth and those affected by the incarceration of a loved one. 1 in 43 children in America have a parent incarcerated. 70% of those children are expected to end up in prison. Through filmmaking, animation, theater, and writing, they help young people express themselves, build confidence, and imagine new possibilities. Beyond the arts, they offer financial literacy workshops, emergency support, and scholarships. Because thriving takes more than talent, it takes access. To learn more about the impact of Michael Daughters Foundation and how you can be a part of the movement, please visit their website, michaelsdaughterfoundation.com. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA Talk 1580 stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't back down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage career track jobs. The LA Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. And they are advocating for a fair deal for black workers in the new Los Angeles City Charter. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing, or learn about union apprenticeship programs and trade registries, please visit lablackworkercenter.org. That's lablackworkercenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis and build a more equitable Los Angeles. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the beat.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are in Mr. Krim's classroom on Moving Mountain Mondays, and we're discussing Tulsa, the race massacre, which this is the anniversary of. Ernest Krim, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, thanks again for having me, brother.
Of course, we're going to have your word of hope at the end. I was just thinking about the chilling effect that is Black life when it comes to making investments in capitalism. For example, if I had hit the lottery and a century or so ago, I could make an investment in a Black Wall Street for development of however much money was a suitable investment for me to have a significant stake in the town. And then a racial incident sweep through the town and literally destroy the town. The ways in which I would be able to recover my investment as an African American investing in Greenwood would be extremely difficult. Even with the idea that Greenwood would never be rebuilt or sustained to create the quality of life that was initiated during the early parts of Jim Crow and at the end of First Reconstruction to help make that town thrive. And that brings me all the way up to a reflection that I had regarding Dave Chappelle in Yellow Springs, Ohio, when he had made an investment, a commitment to make an investment, I guess in an eatery or a club or something. And then the town wanted him to audition. But then without vetting a complex, I guess on 100 and some odd acres that included low-income housing, that included certain developments, David Chappelle said, whoa, wait a minute. I'm talking about developing and offering tens of millions of dollars investment in the town as it is, because that's a sound investment for me, given the direction of the town. But if you're going to change the character of the town after I make my investment, I may never be able to recover my investment. And of course, he threatened to pull it out. The housing advocates went nuts. David Chappelle's against affordable housing. Not true at all. I'm just suggesting that inherent in capitalism itself are these choices that people get to make under the circumstances. And part of our choices that we make for safe investments are tied to the history of racial trauma and investment, what we have experienced and know as a race of people. If Dave Chappelle were going to bring tens of millions of dollars to Yellow Springs, I think it was Yellow Springs, Ohio, and then suddenly the character of the town was being changed by local council vote, I can't blame Dave Chappelle for saying no, practice with the government's money. Don't practice with my money, because I'm putting smart money and I'm putting good money towards a good use for the purposes of profit maximization. But the chilling effect that I am experiencing because of Tulsa, because of the terror when we do make investments, is enough for me to change my mind. Ernest?
Oh man, this is a conversation we could probably have this entire summer. I think that, man, what's deep about this too is, as we move forward, going back to what I said previously, one of the best strategies we can have moving forward is not to publicly announce any strategies moving forward. I think that if we are going to, wherever we are in our communities, our blocks, if it's an online strategy or something like that, we have to make sure we get back into community in person. Remember that everything that our ancestors created, or the great leaders of another generation who are still with us, they did this pre-2012, pre-2013, before social media and smartphones became ubiquitous. So I really want us to be aware of that. Also, I'm not someone who believes that we can counter capitalism with a more enhanced capitalism because of where we are. So we have to make sure that, I'm gonna take y'all back real quick in my last couple minutes to the Negro Act of 1740, post Stono Rebellion. The Negro Act of 1740 mandated 5 things. It said that Black people could no longer grow their own food, learn to read, move freely, assemble in groups, or earn money. All of that encompasses what's very important for us to make sure we double down on moving forward. Can we grow our own food? They had all of that functioning in Tulsa. They had grocery stores, so they had farmland nearby. Are we well educated? We're in the midst of a learning recession, according to many studies right now. Moving freely, think about what that means. Assembling in groups. All of these things are vitally important to what we must create moving forward. And I think that very first thing is probably of the utmost importance. Growing our food. Are we well fed? Are we of good health? Because if we don't have that, nothing else can flow properly. So I would challenge everybody to look at that Negro Act of 1740, reflect on what happened with the Tulsa Act of Terror, and consider what we should be doing moving forward and get together in person with folks to discuss it.
Ernest, it's always a pleasure to be in your classroom.
Thanks for having me, brother.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We have just about a minute or so before we come forward. And after having listened to Ernest, I'm now reflecting upon two of the most successful businesses that have ever occurred in the African-American community, both the funeral business. The first hour of this program has been dedicated to the life of the late Spencer Leak Jr. from the Spencer Leak and Sons family home here in the city of Chicago. And the hair business. Guess what else during segregation? White folks didn't want to touch your hair. Didn't want to come into contact with your hair. And so we thrived in the area of personal products, hair care products, combing, cutting, shaving, and grooming our own heads because they didn't want to touch us. And if they drank out of our glasses, they threw them away. If we ate out of their plates, they broke their plates. They didn't want to have anything to do with us as if we had the cooties. And so it is not a stretch to say that when African Americans are successful in business, they find a way to eliminate the idea of that industry or of those participants who are taking advantage of the industry and becoming successful and leading examples of prowess and entrepreneurialism here in our system. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, The Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Hord Owens and our very special guest, Senior Pastor Raymond C. Dix of the Pilgrim Baptist Church. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Health officials say the Ebola death toll is rising in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda.
And so by the time they get to the health centers, their disease is really advanced and they end up dying.
The World Health Organization is confirming 43 deaths across both countries. Louisiana's new congressional map is now law. The GOP-led Senate gave final approval Friday, and Governor Jeff Landry signed it hours later. The move comes after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the state's 6th district. The new map eliminates one of the state's black majority congressional districts. And singer MIA is suing Kid Cudi after being removed from his tour. Cudi dropped her as an opener following a rant during a May 2nd show, saying fans were upset and he did not want anything offensive at his concerts. MIA is seeking $2.8 million, claiming Live Nation agreed to pay her regardless of what she said on stage. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Head to Waba Grill weekdays after 3 p.m. for their $5 happy hour and try their new Chili Crisp dumplings. Bold, crunchy, and toss in a fiery crisp paired with a premium Waba beverage drink like their authentic Thai tea. Get both for just $5 only at Waba Grill. It's for you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The tennis world is buzzing today after an announcement by Serena Williams that she's coming out of retirement. The Compton native confirmed that she has accepted a wildcard invitation to play in the doubles competition next week at the HSBC Championships in London. Serena, now 44, hasn't played since she retired in 2022 after competing in the U.S. Open. Serena's announcement is not a complete surprise. There have been reports of her training 3 times a week in Florida since March. She walked away from the sport to spend more time with her family. Serena and her husband, Alexis Ohanian, have 2 young daughters. Serena gave no indication on who her doubles partner will be in London. She and her sister Venus won 14 major titles together when they were dominating the sport. We'll let you know if the legendary sisters team up again. Stay tuned. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
brothers and sisters.
You have something to say, and we want to hear it. KBLA Talk 1580 is engagement radio, not outrage radio. A place where your hopes, your frustrations, and your ideas are welcome 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real talk, real people, real Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580, the station that sounds like the city looks. Tune in on your AM radio dial at 1580. Download our free KBLA 1580 app or listen live on our website at KBLA1580.com.
Unapologetically progressive.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are now in the Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Teresa Terry Hord Owens, General Minister and President of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada, an author, an advocate for the church living out its calling. She's the first person of color and the second woman to lead the denomination. Since her election in 2017, Reverend Hord Owens' ministry actively reflects the disciples' priority of being an anti-racist church, being a movement for wholeness, and welcoming all to the Lord's table as God has welcomed us. Reverend Terry Hord Owens, welcome forward to your show, The Faith Not to Fall.
Oh, thank you. It's always good to be here.
I am so grateful that you are here on this, the 105th anniversary of the Tulsa race riots. Also joining us in this hour, Pastor Raymond C. Dix has faithfully served in the preaching ministry for the past 44 years and is now serving in the Fort Wayne, Indiana area as senior pastor of Pilgrim Baptist Church. Pastor Dix comes to Pilgrim with over 30 years of pastoral experience, with much of it being urban inner city ministry and experience. Pastor Dick strongly believes that the hope of any community is in the gospel of Jesus. He is a deep believer in expository preaching and teaching in the church community. Reverend Dix, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Hord Owens.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Brother Jesse, and good afternoon, Reverend Terry Hord Owens, Madam President. It's an honor to be with you again.
Good to be with you again, Pastor.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam President, it's been some amazing things that have come out of the Vatican in the last couple of weeks. First, the tangle between the President of the United States and the Pope, Secretary Hegseth, where there is now breaking news that I'll bring with you in just a few moments coming out of the Pentagon, the non-promotion of African American women on a merit-based system, but simply summarily dismissing them because they are Black women, even though they have more than earned the right to be promoted in that system. And in this reflection, the Pope has emerged in ways that the more than 200 popes who've served in the position of the pontificate since Peter, this is the first one to address to the Holy See, that's what they call it in Catholicism, the role that slavery has played. That's really, really particularly important to me because of the more than 200 and some odd popes who've had the position, not one of them saw the need to address this until there was an American pope. Madam President.
Oh, I couldn't be happier. Not only did he address it, he apologized for the Catholics' role in not addressing it earlier. There's probably more that he could still say, but I think it's because he is American that he has these cultural insights and historical insights. And that being said, thanks be to God for his prophetic courage. He's been willing to speak and not really care what anybody thinks about it. But yeah, that kind of apology has not. Denominations have apologized for slavery. I think the disciples apologized for slavery maybe 15, 20 years ago. But few entities have apologized for their role in perpetrating it and for their failure to fight against it.
Pastor Dix, your thought on the role of Pope Leo and what seems to be a very different trend for the Catholic Church.
Yes, I would have to agree with Madam President there in terms of his perspective being largely driven by being born in America and understanding what slavery has done to Black Americans in this country. But also, I want to say I'm not surprised that it took this long for Catholic pontiffs to do this. When you research the history of the Catholic Church, you see that the pontiffs were usually, except with some exceptions, looking to maintain empires and governments. They wanted stability. They didn't want to upset the apple cart, so to speak. Their goal was to just try to keep Europe from not tearing itself apart, especially those who like the French and the English who at least at some point shared a common faith. When the Anglican Church came on, it was a bit different dynamic for the popes to deal with. But again, they didn't see a great role for Africans or in the church as a whole. It was only when colonialism began to fit their narrative that they really began to look at how can we bring some Africans into the church.
You know, I accept at some level or another that God's hand is in all of human affairs since the inception of time to the present, and that the American experiment is only 250 years old. The Declaration of Independence will be celebrated by some, commemorated by others on July 4th, 1776, the 250th anniversary. And the fact that this is the first pope from this very young experiment, the experiment of America, the experiment in the context of the United States, a pope who is, as Madam President has suggested, understands this history, understands this culture, understands the role that the United States for the last 250 years has played in challenging various forms of slave systems, albeit not a perfect system ourselves, but what America, with the contribution of the Negro, would ultimately become a democracy, something that it was not on July 4th, 1776. That witness would encourage other democracies around the world. That witness even inspires the conclave itself to vote democratically upon someone who fills the shoes of Peter upon the expiration of a pope. And for this pope, to the president's point, to have the courage to say that slavery was wrong, that the church's role in the slave trade was wrong, that he need only take the next step, that there are consequences and ramifications that are still necessary to right the wrongs of these traditions at every level of government, not just in the United States, but every system that has been profoundly affected by the tragedy of what it meant to enslave a people. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. We're on the Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Hoard Owens. Our very special guest in this hour is Pastor Raymond C. Dix, the pastor of the Pilgrim Baptist Church in Fort Wayne, Indiana. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's Afternoon Drive Time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's celebrate. Y'all did it. Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles, KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, The Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm. A-rated by the Better Business Bureau, their award-winning tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $3 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Find the best options to solve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief today for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
For adults with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms, every choice matters. Tremfya offers self-injection or intravenous infusion from the start. Tremfya is administered as injections under the skin or infusions through a vein every 4 weeks, followed by injections under the skin every 4 or 8 weeks. If your doctor decides that you can self-inject Tremfya, proper training is required. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are commemorating the 105th anniversary of the Tulsa race riots of 1921. It is also occurring at the same time as the commemoration and the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, hence the foundation of the United States of America. We are in the Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Hoard Owens. She is the General Minister and President of the Christian Church in the United States and Canada, one of a very few women, but certainly persons of color, to ever lead a mainline denomination that does not include a majority of African Americans. She's a regular contributor right here at the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Reverend Hoard Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the Faith Not to Fall with Terry Hoard Owens.
Always good to be with you, my brother. Good to see you.
And of course, joining us in this hour is Pastor Raymond C. Dix Jr. Pastor Dix currently holds many certifications and recognitions for his years of service, as well as a bachelor's degree in biblical studies from Indiana Wesleyan University. And he's currently pursuing his MDiv degree with the intention of completing a doctoral study as well. Pastor Dix, welcome forward to the show.
Thank you very much, my brother. It's Monday, the preacher's Sabbath, and it's 4 o'clock in Eastern time, and I'm still drinking coffee, so that tells you a lot.
Terry, in the last hour, we had Ernest Krim, and we were in his classroom, and Ernest, I thought, did an extraordinary job talking about Tulsa. You have some insights on the significance of Tulsa as well, Madam President.
Yeah, it was something, my dad's a retired Black Studies professor. And so I had read when I was small about these things, even when they weren't being taught in school. And in our denomination, we have about 8 Black congregations in the whole state of Oklahoma. We've got lots of churches in Oklahoma, but only about 8 congregations. And so I know those folks well. And there are several families who are descendants of those murdered and certainly those who survived in the Tulsa massacre. And we're very much a part of the drive to remember the history, particularly to commemorate the centennial of the massacre several years ago. And I think as somebody who grew up in, a small town in southern Indiana, a free Black community that was there as far away as the 1820s, that there is always this pattern of when there are too many of you, too many of us, and we begin to demonstrate an ability to show some success, then it becomes problematic. The race riots that were happening in the United States in the early 20th century, East St. Louis, Chicago, they called the summer of 1919 the Red Summer. There was so much violence against the flourishing of Black communities. And I was just in Tulsa about 3 weeks ago to speak at the Phillips Theological Seminary, commencement, which is our seminary there. And every time I'm there, I try to go down there. It's a shadow. You see it there, but it's really a shadow of what it was. And the memorial, the fact that there's only a memorial to the greatness and that there has never been really active reparation or intentional work to rebuild, it is really very sad. A lot of Black Tulsans left the city and left the state after that. So that's another, once we're attacked, it's another diaspora of sorts, because we're forced to leave in order to be safe from the very places where, they, as Ernest said, they were leveraging the oil. I don't know if you call it an oil surge, and knew that people were mining for oil, and there was a huge market in those days. But there's been a secondary diaspora from Tulsa as a result. But people in my denomination are very tied to that history, and Black folks in Tulsa are very committed to at least keeping the history alive. And on their own, because that generational wealth was disrupted, on their own, they're not able to really rebuild and revitalize it. So it's still a sad situation.
Madam President, I'm thinking and I'm reflecting in this moment that between 1619 and the Declaration of Independence, there are 157th July 4ths from 1619 until Gettysburg. July 4th is just another day. I'm sorry. 157 July 4ths between 1619 and July 4th, 1776. Just another day.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a slave. I get it, Frederick Douglass. And from July 4th until Gettysburg, another 88 July 4ths in slavery. And they may be celebrating on one side of town, but just another day if you're in slavery. And then, of course, another 2 July 4ths before the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, 1865.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be particularly insulting that 1,600 people can run through the capital of the United States and the President of the United States offer them a $2 billion reparation fund.
Yeah.
And for the people of Tulsa, no such reparation fund, even with over the last couple of decades, and I understand that there are no more descendants, immediate witnesses to the conflict worth the living, even to have denied those who were still here the right to some form of reparation makes me want to deliver another July 4th oration of the profundity of Frederick Douglass. It just has to be devastatingly shocking to you, Madam President.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the raw injustice of it, the generational stress on our physical and mental health, because our ancestors carry that. We grow up and pass along a memory and a history, that because nothing gets better and not much changes, we carry with us the stress of the injustice of that history. And we're in a cycle now where, as I've said before, we were all the beneficiaries of the adults, my parents and grandparents who were so active in the movement, your dad and others whom he inspired. And they thought we would be the beneficiaries, that they were working for a world in which we wouldn't have to deal with a lot of that stuff. And here I am now in a situation where I must now turn my attention to rebuilding things that I grew up taking almost for granted, to ensure that my 3-year-old grandson will not have to suffer those kinds of injustices. So the anger at what we see happening, both and when young people learn, that's why they don't want us to know our history, because it will anger our children. It will rise, something in us will rise up. I remember having conversations with my husband when my son went to kindergarten. He was in a private Christian school, an Episcopal school in Indianapolis. And we were like, what's going to happen the first time he distinguishes himself as a little Black boy with these other white kids? And so we continue to have to work through all of that, but it's generational trauma and stress that this injustice continues to impose. And that's why I believe the Holy Ghost has just softened my edges, because I think if it were not for Jesus, I'm not sure what kind of person I would be, because I get angry. And I preach about it in ways in which I try to, encourage truth telling, but I'm not the kind that you can pat on the head and go sit in a corner. But that anger is something that we all deal with, and it's not healthy for any of us. And we're still not finished managing the anger, because we're not finished dealing with the injustice.
Pastor Dix, you've recently taken a trip to a number of cities around the country. Very interested in your insights and anything that you're willing or can share with us about what you learned on that amazing journey. Pastor Dix?
Thank you very much. Probably the most important thing, or maybe I'll start with the least important thing, and that was the great food that was in New Orleans. Okay, that's probably the least important thing. But no, the most important thing I think on this journey was I was amazed as I sojourned between the cities, New Orleans, Jackson, Mississippi, Selma, Alabama, and Montgomery, at how much I did not know. That was never in the history books that I learned from. And I call myself kind of a student of history in a sense. I love history. But in terms of comparing what I was taught growing up in the 70s and the 80s compared to what I see today, or what I learned on this trip, it was a lot different. And I thought about my grandchildren. I thought about my children and the world they grew up in, and how these things were obscured from them. Then I thought about this. One of the great things about this sojourn was that I had the opportunity to be exposed to these things. In New Orleans, in Louisiana, we went to the Whitley Plantation. We went to Cancer Alley. In Jackson, we had a chance to sit down with the mayor of Jackson. One of the things I'll point out in Jackson, and you two probably already know this, the Civil Rights Museum in Jackson, I'm told, is the only civil rights museum in the country that's state funded. And in order to do that, I think most of what they had to do was build a museum that housed both the history of the state of Mississippi and the civil rights history, which are on polar opposites of the building. And just the optics of that were, impressed upon me, is that, yes, while we have this great civil rights museum in Jackson, it's still separate from the history of the state of Mississippi. Now, the mayor was a part of that. Mayor John Horn in Jackson, he was a part of that legislation to bring that to pass. And he remarked to us that it was more important for them to have the state pay for it. And they saw some sense of state responsibility in not having to raise, a lot of money to maintain or to run the museum. It's in the state budget, I guess, in perpetuity. So then from Jackson to Selma, and I realize that Selma needs a lot of help, that maybe people aren't aware of the penalty that was assessed against Selma, Alabama for the people rising up and saying we're willing to be the epicenter of voting rights for Black people across this country, considering we already had the 15th Amendment that should have settled that issue. Obviously, it did not. And, we walked across the bridge at Edmund Pettus Bridge. It was my second time doing that. And each time it's just so impactful. Went to Foot Soldiers Park there in Selma, and then to the cemetery where Nathan Forrest or whatever his name is buried.
Long lost relative of Forrest Gump, by the way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nathan Bedford Forrest.
That's right, Nathan Bedford Forrest.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have the cemetery with all these people that fought for some freedoms, and in the middle of it is a circle of Confederate soldiers buried along with him, and some questionable history is on his tombstone. I'll put it like that. But then I'll finish with it. Then from Jackson to Montgomery, and I'll tell every Black person that's listening, if the Legacy Museum is not on your list to do, you need to put it on your list to do. You need to see this. It was a life-changing experience for me and for those who went on the trip with us. So I would say perspective is gained when you go to these types of things.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are in the Faith Not the Fall with Reverend Terry Hord Owens. Our very special guest is Pastor Raymond C. Dix Jr. We have a lot of more where that came from. We're also remembering in this hour the Leak family and the loss of Spencer Leak Jr., a pillar in the funeral business, a leader in our community here in the city of Chicago, a leader in the Obama for President campaign in 2008, and so much more. The 9 campaigns that I successfully ran for Congress. Spencer Leak Jr. was the chairman. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Florida Congresswoman Frederica Wilson is announcing her retirement.
It's time.
The 83-year-old Democrat represents the state's 24th congressional district and has served 8 terms. Wilson leaves behind a major legacy, including founding the 5,000 Role Models of Excellence project and helping bring billions in infrastructure funding to Miami-Dade. The leading candidates for Los Angeles mayor are making their final pitches before Tuesday's primary. Black Mayor Karen Bass, Council Member Nithya Raman, and community advocate Spencer Pratt all met with voters over the weekend. A new UC Berkeley poll shows Bass with a narrow lead. And 1 week after a white supremacist group marched at the Virginia Beach, Virginia oceanfront, members of the original Black Panther Party returned to the same area on Saturday. The group says the march was meant to reassure the community and push back against fear or intimidation from white nationalist groups. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Head to Waba Grill weekdays after 3 p.m. for their $5 happy hour and try their new Chili Crisp dumplings. Bold, crunchy, and tossed in a fiery crisp, paired with a premium Wa beverage drink like their authentic Thai tea. Get both for just $5 only at Waba Grill. It's for you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The tennis world is buzzing today after an announcement by Serena Williams that she's coming out of retirement. The Compton native confirmed that she has accepted a wildcard invitation to play in the doubles competition next week at the HSBC Championships in London. Serena, now 44, hasn't played since she retired in 2022 after competing in the U.S. Open. Serena's announcement is not a complete surprise. There have been reports of her training 3 times a week in Florida since March. She walked away from the sport to spend more time with her family. Serena and her husband, Alexis Ohanian, have 2 young daughters. Serena gave no indication on who her doubles partner will be in London. She and her sister Venus won 14 major titles together when they were dominating the sport. We'll let you know if the legendary sisters team up again. Stay tuned. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
In a world full of noise, one station keeps it real. KBLA Talk 1580, where the conversation goes deeper, the voices sound like yours, and the issues that matter most to our community take center stage. Progressive, powerful, unapologetically us. Whether you're driving through the city or tuning in from your home or office, join the public square. KBLA Talk 1580. Your home for talk that enlightens, encourages, and empowers. Listen live on our free KBLA 1580 app, on our website at KBLA1580.com, or on your radio dial at 1580 AM.
Unapologetically progressive.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been an emergency room nurse in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I've been there through every fire season, every outbreak, every earthquake. Every time Los Angeles needed us, the doctors and nurses of Los Angeles County showed up. And right now, I'm seeing another disaster coming. Trump's cuts to Los Angeles County's healthcare system are a public health crisis in the making. Medi-Cal, public hospitals, disaster preparedness are all at risk. But we can stop it. Measure ER fights back against these cuts. For a half a penny, we keep emergency rooms open, care within reach for working families, and doctors and nurses serving the communities we love. When you vote yes on Measure ER, you're not just voting for healthcare, you're voting for LA. Vote yes on Measure ER by June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Yes on ER, Restore Healthcare for Angelinos, sponsored by St. John's Community Health and Health Justice Action Fund. Ad committee top funder, St. John's Community Health.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. At the heart of the Al Wooten Center's mission for good citizenship and academic excellence is a desire to ensure that every student avoids the kind of lifestyle and overcomes the kinds of challenges that led to the murder of Al Wooten Jr. In 1990, founder Myrtle Fay Rumpf opened the center in honor of her son's life. In 2026, they are serving more than 300 students in grades 3 through 12 annually online and on site at their youth center and other sites in the South LA area. The Al Wooten Jr. Youth Center takes a neighborhood approach to the revitalization and empowerment of a community in crisis. The Wooten Center provides free after-school and summer programs to help students in grades 3 through 12 attain grade-level proficiency and promotion, high school graduation, and college and career access and success. The Al Wooten Center focuses on academics, STEM, the arts, and so much more. Join them for an enriching experience that sparks creativity and nurtures young minds. Tap in at WootenCenter.org. That's WootenCenter.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You still have time to vote. Skip the lines and return your ballot to any official ballot drop box near you leading up to Tuesday, June 2nd. So don't wait and vote early. Visit plan.lavote.gov to learn more. Brought to you by the Los Angeles County Registrar.
Let's celebrate.
Y'all did it!
Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles, KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, The Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We have The Faith Not the Fall with Reverend Terry Hord Owens, and our very special guest in this hour is Pastor Raymond Dix. Reverend Owens, welcome forward to the show.
Thank you, my brother. It's always good to be here.
Pastor Dix, welcome forward to the show as well.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a joy and a pleasure to be here as well.
Pastor Owens, according to Axios, Bloomberg, The Independent, The New Republic, Yahoo, Huffington Post, and AOL, Donald Trump has now decided to drop his $1.8 billion slush fund after outrage over paying his allies has now reached a unique crescendo. Madam President, I happen to think it's directly tied to the Negro demand for reparations. I think Donald Trump opened a door that he cannot close, and the demands are growing by the minute, and it's deeply troubling for Republicans and Democrats, quite frankly.
Absolutely. You know, you and so many of your former colleagues were certainly making that case. I know I've heard it in circles where I am. It's just the circular nature of that illegality, if you will, of the president being on both sides of the equation. And nobody can justify it. Absolutely nobody can justify it. The courts are the group of retired judges who basically accused him of defrauding the court because not all the information was laid out. But yeah, nobody. It's clear if we can set aside $1.8 billion, if we can spend multiple billions of dollars for wars that we don't need to be a part of, there is, that's always my prayer to help us remember there is enough. We just have to choose and decide how we're going to prioritize our resources. But I'm very glad to see even Republicans become very angry and setting up the obstruction to keep this from happening. It's ridiculous is the only word. I used to say I'm not going to assign evil to this, but no, it's evil. He's an evil person and a mentally ill person. On top of that, that's just the truth of it. But I'm really glad to hear that there's now so much opposition that he even can't bulldoze his way through to make it happen.
Pastor Dix, on your trip through Louisiana, through Alabama, through Mississippi, did you see and understand particular instances where a reparations fund might have been helpful to those communities who've been left behind based on your personal witness over the last couple of weeks?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question because that's something that I thought about in Jackson with the particular challenges that the mayor of Jackson has there. Now, he has a very dynamic plan to bring Jackson back, especially South Jackson. But again, when you look at the economic resources that are going to be required, it's going to be a challenge for him. Also, Selma, as I said earlier, still struggling to have any business investment. People growing up there leaving as soon as they get old enough to buy a ticket somewhere. They're out of Selma. And even to some degree, Montgomery in terms of building up the economic basis there. So yes, I would say that there was that throughout the South on this trip, and New Orleans. I mean, obviously, if you look at I can't forget the lower Ninth Ward, which is still recovering, and I use that term very loosely because recovering kind of sees that you're getting some attention. There's some medical help going on, but they're still trying to recover from Hurricane Katrina, the Plaza, Hurricane Ida, and the Cancer Alley issue. So yes, the answer to your question would be unequivocally yes, that those problems could be addressed by reparations. Now, let me just say very quickly, I think that, and maybe I'm giving Donald Trump too much credit here, but I don't think he was ever intending to give that $1.8 billion away. I think he was intending to politically placate those people that helped him get elected and then shrug his shoulders and say, I tried. Now, again, he is a very, very, very shrewd, I'm not saying, brilliantly intelligent, but shrewdness and intelligence are kind of two different things, in the sense. So I don't think he ever intended to do it. I just think he intended to say, I tried to do it. He knew that could not fly. He knew it wasn't going to fly.
I think you're giving him a lot.
Too much credit.
I think if he could give it away, it's
could be the pastor in me. I don't know. Hope for the best of all people.
I think the first plan was to pocket. They told him he could not get away with trying to pocket, because that was his initial plan, was to sue for $10 billion for his own reparation, and he was told that would not fly. Yeah,
I think that's right. I have argued that reparations should present itself in a form that benefits our communities and, quite frankly, all Americans, for that matter. If healthcare, for example, were a constitutional right of equal high quality for all Americans, and it guaranteed healthcare for my children, my children's children's children, my children's 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 children, of equal high quality for the rest of their lives from now until the end of the United States. And there were poor white families in trailer parks, Hispanics in barrios and ghettos, who were also beneficiaries of such a gift, and it improved the health and the quality of life for millions of people. And it's because they owed us that it applies for all Americans. I would consider that to be not just a reparation, but an organized reparation that's actually planned out budgetally every year by the Congress of the United States to accomplish this unique goal for all of the American people, therefore raising the healthiest people in the history of the world right here in the United States. I think the same could be case could be made for rebuilding 90,000 public schools in the United States, where when we graduate from the 8th grade and from high school, we are the best equipped AI, whatever the next technology is, in the world. Every single graduate, not just the ones who go to affluent schools, but every single graduate with a master's degree or PhD teacher who only teaches 15 students and gives them the care and concern that they need and they deserve. I believe if you did that into perpetuity, and I didn't have to pay out of my pocket for that kind of education for my children, I would call that a well-spent reparation for the damage the nation has done to a people. To me, that makes sense. The idea of writing somebody a check and they go down the street and get something to drink with it is an unacceptable form of reparation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
A lot of thought involved in this process. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Hoard Owens and our very special guest, Pastor Raymond Dix. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Why'd I go to the doctor? Working on the farm, my heart kept skipping a beat. I didn't think much of it, but my daughters made me get checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
This is the story of the one who keeps multiple buildings running smoothly day after day. Plumbing that flows, HVAC that hums, cleaning supplies that keep surfaces sparkling. That's why she counts on Grainger. With easy reordering online and 24/7 support, Grainger helps her keep the products she needs on hand. So shelves stay stocked and buildings stay ready. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Going to a World Cup match in LA this summer? Ditch the parking stress and ride Metro. With direct service from across LA County, it's the easy way to get there for just $1.75 each way.
Let's be real. For too long, too many of our students have sat in overcrowded classrooms in underfunded public schools.
But as head of the San Diego School Board, Richard Barrera changed that.
Under Barrera's leadership, student literacy rose from the state average all the way to #1 among major urban school districts. Barrera led the way for smaller classrooms and for teachers to be paid what they're worth.
Barrera funded more counselors and mental health services, and community schools that teach real-world skills for future jobs.
A community organizer who became an education leader to fight for our kids. The only candidate for state superintendent of public instruction,
Backed by the 310,000 classroom educators of the California Teachers Association. Vote Democrat Richard Barrera for state superintendent.
Ad paid for by California Teachers Association Independent Expenditure Committee, not authorized by a candidate or committee controlled by a candidate.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Created with a share of the 1984 Olympic Games surplus, LA 84 began operations in 1985 as a grant-making and educational foundation. Today, the LA 84 Foundation supports hundreds of nonprofit youth sports organizations throughout Southern California annually, trains coaches, commissions research, convenes conferences, and maintains the world's premier Olympic and sports library collection. They are transforming lives and communities through the power of youth sports. To find out about youth sports programs for yourself or your child, and to get information about the grants and support they offer to schools and nonprofits, or if you want to make a donation, please visit la84.org. That's la84.org. Or you can call them at 323-730-4600. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, KBLA listeners, this is Stephen Bradford, candidate for State Insurance Commissioner on June 2nd. I've spent my entire life as a public servant on the Gardena City Council, the State Assembly, and the State Senate, standing up for working families, small businesses, seniors, and communities that are too often left behind. I'm running for State Insurance Commissioner because we need an advocate, a watchdog, who will make sure insurance is not only available, but affordable for all Californians. I, like you, am tired of being dropped from coverage after doing everything right, or wondering if anyone is on your side after a disaster strikes. I will be your strongest advocate to make sure we have a vibrant insurance market that creates greater competition and more choices for consumers like yourself. We need a market that serves all of California. As your next insurance commissioner, I will be that warrior to make sure all Californians have affordable insurance. Your ballots have arrived. I ask you to vote for Stephen Bradford as your next insurance commissioner. Stephen Bradford, a name you know. Stephen Bradford, a name you can trust. Vote by June 2nd.
Paid for by Stephen Bradford for insurance commissioner.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Hord Owens, as well as our very special guest, Pastor Raymond Dix. This is our final segment in the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Madam President, welcome forward to your show.
Thank you, sir. It's always good to be here.
Pastor Dix, thank you for being our special guest in this hour.
Well, thank you very much. I'm always glad to be here.
Great. I have two really, really important points that both of you have written in the chat that I really want to address, some of which I know I would have to address in a subsequent show, with these two questions being central to the beginning of the show. That being from Pastor Dix, that Black people in Tulsa received no support from the government and that they created it on their own. There's a lot to be said about that we can't cover in the final segment of the show, but it is its own show. And when we start talking about, as Reverend Terry Hoyt Owens says, the generational gap in terms of understanding the history and the class gap, it too deserves its own treatment. But in this moment, Reverend Owens, I'd like to ask you this question. And then I have another similar question for Pastor Dix. History has accepted a presidential power called the Emancipation Proclamation. It delivered and issued on December 31st, 1962, emancipating the slaves where Lincoln had control, and in areas where he did not have control, he kept slavery in place where he had control, but freed slaves where he did not have control. Since we have accepted, and history has accepted, the power of a president to issue an Emancipation Proclamation and it essentially be the force of law, if an Emancipation Proclamation, Madam President, were being issued for women today, a Democratic or a Republican president, from your perspective, Madam President, what would that language sound like? Please speak it into existence for us.
Oh my goodness. I think it would have to speak to agency, to equity of education, to particular agency over one's bodies, reproductive rights, etc., full voting rights, full economic and educational rights, that there would be no discrimination. I mean, we see the current administration releasing women, Black and otherwise, from key roles in government, in the military. Hegseth is the one that's really been just sort of knocking away admirals and generals who are both Black and female. But I think it would have to address the equity in terms of voting rights, educational opportunities, employment opportunities, and agency and control over one's bodies. And without those things, it wouldn't have much purchase. But I also think in today's environment, we would need to also be simultaneously ready with legal backup, so that if that executive order were challenged, that we would have the force of the Congress to create laws to back that up.
Or to advance a constitutional amendment like
or constitutional amendment, yes.
After the Emancipation Proclamation of 1862.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm wondering, Pastor Dix, if the opportunity presented itself to you and there were a category of Americans, and I would not exclude African Americans or Native Americans.
KBLA 50.
What would the language sound like today? Without the support of Congress, without the need of the Supreme Court, because their history has shown us that the President of the United States can issue an Emancipation Proclamation. What would that language sound like from your perspective today, Pastor Dix?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to recognize that whatever that language is, there's going to be a effort to challenge it on its validity, as it was, as Lincoln believed with the Emancipation Proclamation, that it would not stand. But if it could get to a constitutional amendment, that'd be great. But I think it would talk about very much removing the impediments from people to create and build for themselves. I think that opportunity, as much as the Republican Party says that these things are available, when you look at substandard spending in education, and when you look at community policing and how those things are done differently, when you look at the inequities in sentencing for criminal offenses that affect Black and brown people more than they affect white people. But in general, they affect poor people. And I think that that's part of the dynamic that we have to look at. So what that language would be we're going to make sure that in all cases, that as much as possible, that these impediments are removed so that people can pursue what this country's creed said that it is, the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And that's something that I think that language would have to include, removing those impediments and allowing people to live to the fullest of their potential under the guidance and the eye of God.
I would support both of these efforts by Reverend Terry Hoard Owens and Pastor Dix. Of course, I have argued and continue to argue that if the President of the United States, and there are 77 million men and women who've been to prison, both at the federal and state level, who did exactly what the judge in their cases said do. They did exactly what the jury in their cases said do. The Emancipation Proclamation issued in 1862 on December 31st had the effect of freeing 3.1 million to 3.5 million people over the life of the Emancipation Proclamation. That if you forgave 2.5 million people who paid their debt to society, or any integral greater than that, it would rival the Emancipation Proclamation by restoring life to the American people on a scale that we haven't seen since 1862. That can be done with the unfettered power of the pardon.
Yes.
Can't be debated by Congress, cannot be challenged by the courts. And I'm not talking about violent people. I'm not talking about letting anybody out of jail who has not paid their debt to society, or people who are extremely dangerous and need to remain in prison for the remainder of their days. That is not what we're discussing. We're talking about people who made a mistake at some point in time in their life, and they can't shake the felony conviction without the federal pardon power. And so, yes, I support the idea by Reverend Terry Hoard Owens, an emancipation for the agency of women. They can control their own bodies. How freeing and liberating it would be. An emancipation that Pastor Dix advocates for, the complete emancipation of people who find themselves in some form of bondage. And of course, but not limited to, men and women who have paid their debt to society in full, whether it's a Democratic president or Republican Party, for the 50th anniversary, the 250th anniversary of the people of the United States, we ought to grant them full liberation and a rebirth of a new nation, a nation dedicated to the principle that all men and women are created equal. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to The Faith Not the Fall with Reverend Terry Hoard Owens and Reverend Raymond C. Dix. I can't wait to have both of them on again. Reverend Owens, I look forward to your next show, and I'm so grateful for your regular participation. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward. Until tomorrow on Tenacious Tuesday.